Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to a solo episode. I've decided that I'm going to be doing more solos on the regular show. So you can definitely look forward to that. I always hear feedback from you guys that you like those best. So I'll be incorporating some more of those. I have a lot of fun over on Patreon where I do just a lot of weekly kind of life updates. I get into things that I don't necessarily share on my Instagram or the regular show, but I enjoy doing it so much that it's something that I want to bring to you guys. And I've been talking a lot about this kind of wellness fatigue. I think a lot of people are experiencing like information overload. And I've been talking about wellness for almost 5.5 years. And it's something that I'm definitely still going to be exploring. Obviously, you guys know I rebranded last month, and it's all about like, what does wellness look like for you and what does wellness really mean? But we're also going to like have some fun here, do some more personal things and just see where it goes. So, I did a question box on Instagram and I'm going to be going off of those questions. I got a lot of questions about my Africa trip, some life updates, and some potential juicy Hollywood stories that I have to share. So we'll see what we get into. But the life updates, God, I feel like a lot has happened since I last did my solo episode, which I think was the beginning of September. So the life updates are that after I got back from Martha's Vineyard and Hawaii with my boyfriend, and before I went to Africa, I moved in with him. Ashley's laughing. It's a temporary thing because I was living in this condo that I had rented when I got divorced. And when I moved into that condo, I got a 6-month lease because I thought I was going to be here for 6 months, finish out this commitment that I had, and then either like put my stuff in storage and go travel the world and have my eat, pray, love moment, and or move to New York. So buying a house here, getting into a relationship was not on my bingo card for 2024. And obviously both of those things happened and I bought the house in May. And anyway, I was like going month to month paying for this condo, and we just decided that it did not make any sense. And my house is probably not going to be done until like December or January. A lot of people keep asking for house updates, and I really wish that I had something to share, but I don't, because right now we're just kind of in like the demo phase. There's really not a whole lot to show. We're selecting materials and doing all of that. But I think that it's hard to share without any context. It's hard to show just like a demoed house without knowing what the house actually looks like. So once things start going in and we get more into the design process, then I'll have more to share on social. But yeah, so I moved in with the boyfriend.
How's that?
There's Ashley. Ashley's got questions. It's been amazing. I mean, it made sense because we're together every night anyway. We were together all of our free time. And I think I talked about this on Patreon. Maybe I talked about it with you, Ashley, but he was the one who brought it up like in July. We were in Martha's Vineyard and he's like, I don't think you should continue to pay rent at this place. It doesn't make sense. We're together all of the time anyway. You should just come move in with me until your house is done. And I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're not getting the milk for free. I'm a strong, independent woman. Like I have this thing, I think, because I was so dependent on other people before I got sober, that now the pendulum has swung, I think, to the other end of that spectrum where I really protect my independence. And it's almost like I have to prove to myself and prove to others that I don't need anybody, to my detriment a little bit. So I was like, absolutely not. No way, not happening. And then about a month passed, and then I had to pay that rent again, which was exorbitantly expensive. And I was like, I want to circle back on that offer. Like, does that offer still stand? And he was like, yeah. And I said to him, like, I'm hearing why it makes sense logistically. I'm hearing why it makes sense financially, but I'm not hearing that you want me there again. It's like Overthinkers Anonymous over here.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, first and foremost, I want you there. So I moved in between that time that we got back from one trip and left for Africa. So it really wasn't until we got back that we kind of settled into like the living together of it all. But it's been amazing. I mean, we're both so busy. So it's really just that time like at night and in the morning and these little windows throughout the day that we're together. And it's just nice because it eliminated the logistical kind of difficulty of it all, of living separately when you are so busy. And it's just like having like a sleepover with like your best friend kind of thing. So so that's how that is going. People asked about the Africa trip. I'll just touch on it really quickly because I do want to get into like how are we resetting for fall after summer travels. For me, I've shared before about like how I've been extremely, extremely lenient with my wellness practices, especially for the past year. So I'll get to that. But Africa was amazing. I feel like even though I've only been back for a week and a half, 2 weeks by the time this episode comes out, it's already like a distant memory. And it's so funny because it's like we try so hard to be present and just, I feel like things just move so fast now. And before we went on our trip, my boyfriend's dad was like, enjoy it because before you know it, you're going to be back here. And he's like, he's 92. And he was like, life moves so fast. Just enjoy it. And he was right. I mean, we were gone for 2 weeks. It felt like an eternity because 2 weeks in the bush in Africa, very different from like 2 weeks in London, Paris, some kind of like metropolitan city. You just feel like you're on a different planet. And I did a whole Patreon on this. And I think the title was Anxious in Africa because every day there was some situation where I felt like my life was on the line. And I mean, truly, like we got lunged at by a lion. That was one thing that was like 4 feet away from us. We were looking at these elephants and we were kind of parked on the side of a watering hole where there were crocodiles in the watering hole. We're right on the edge and the elephants are right to the left of our Jeep. And if the elephants get upset, which the guides are very professional and they wouldn't put you in a situation like that, but they can just tip that thing over. And we couldn't turn the engine on because that would scare them. So we're just like sitting there. That was another. We got left in the bush to have like a romantic brunch and they like drove away. And then we see these elephants coming and I was trying to WhatsApp the guide. I'm like, there's elephants coming. I had no service. So now I'm walking around the bush, which you should not do because I mean, there's like lions and stuff. And I think that they scoped out the area to make sure that there was like nothing predatory in that area. But again, like you never know. And I'm anxious anyway. So that was another, we got stuck in a bushfire that was all around us. It was massive. That was the one thing where I truly felt like we might actually die. So it was kind of funny because like, I don't think Chris, my boyfriend, even knows what anxiety is. And I tend to run anxious. I think I shared this somewhere else, but I saw like a comment about Travis Kelce. It's kind of unrelated, but related. And they were like, social anxiety is afraid of Travis Kelce. And I was like, yeah, that's my boyfriend. Like anxiety is afraid of him. He doesn't even know what it is. I was anxious the entire time, but also like in a fun, exhilarating kind of way. Yeah. Kind of once in a lifetime experience. The food was amazing. All of it was incredible. So all of that said, we're back. No more big trips planned that I know of, at least for the rest of the year. I have like some smaller trips. I'm going to New York to record a lot of really great episodes next week. Miami, Hawaii, things like that, but nothing major. So I've shared a lot about how the past year after the Botox incident, we'll call it Botox Gate, my body has just not been what it was prior to that happening. So the things that I used to do wellness-wise don't necessarily work and don't necessarily make me feel good. Case in point, exercise. I mean, I have zero tolerance for exercise. It's really hard. I can do things like play tennis occasionally, but even that, if I exert myself too much, if I'm running around like crazy, I feel it for days, and it's not like a soreness or anything like that. It's like I'm symptomatic again, where I'm having all of the things that I experienced after the Botox incident: vertigo, muscle spasms, muscle weakness, brain fog. A lot of people have sent in their diagnoses for me, which I appreciate. I have explored so many different avenues, so many different specialists, so much blood work, so much testing. Nobody can find anything. So at this point, I'm kind of just like trying to take my attention off of it. And for the most part, night and day better than I was last fall. But there are some times, for example, if I do like Pilates or strength training or a really hard tennis workout or something, I mean, the next day, it's like I may as well be back last September. And so I've had to really modify. And, you know, for the most part, I've shared about this. Like, I really haven't worked out in the past year because I just don't want to put myself back there, because it's a really difficult place to be. And it's hard for me to like do what I need to do on a day-to-day basis when I feel that way. Same thing with like food. It's almost like with no rhyme or reason, I react to certain foods that I used to be able to eat with no issue. So I kind of just let go of the reins. And my main focus in the past year was kind of the opposite, kind of like letting my body settle, letting my nervous system settle, but really not doing much of anything. Like, I do my sauna. I think that has helped me a lot. I love doing that for my skin. It does burn calories. You do sweat. It helps to flush out, you know, toxins that we accumulate throughout the day. It's just something that really feels good. So I do that. I do some meditations here and there, very sporadically. But yeah, I was really focusing on just like getting better and also kind of enjoying not being so sick. And when I was going through that last fall, like I really didn't think that I would ever feel normal again. And I remember thinking, like, if I ever get better, I'm going to change my life in so many different ways. And I've tried not to forget that. And I think people listening have probably experienced that on some level with things that they go through. And it's kind of crazy that it takes being faced with something really challenging to get that kind of perspective on your life. And, you know, I had a lot going on at that time. I had the illness and I had the unraveling of the marriage, and I just was in such a dark place. And I just felt like I'm going to do things differently. If I get better, I'm going to live my life in a different way. And so I really tried to do that this year, saying yes to a lot of things, trying new things professionally. My personal life has grown in so many ways, not just as a result of the relationship, but like socially. You know, I was very much like living in a bubble, I think, when I was married, and my world was getting smaller and smaller because I just felt like I was comfortable and I had all my needs and wants and everything taken care of. And I was like so comfortable in some ways that like I just didn't ever want to do anything. I didn't feel like I had to expand my life in any way. And then suddenly when I'm starting over, I lost some friends as a result of the marriage. I lost that partnership, and I had to like really put myself out there to be fulfilled and like have new relationships and things in my life. So anyway, that was kind of the focus this year. All of that said, we're back. It's October. Everyone's talking about fall reset. And I feel like I'm in a place where I don't want to be regimented. That doesn't work for me. I'm not like a strict routine, structure, wellness girly. That's not my thing. And I always say on the show, I wish I was, because people like that. People want to be told, we're waking up at this time, we're doing X, Y, Z. And that's just not who I am. And it's not really the place that I'm at right now. But I am going to be incorporating a few things into my routine. And I think that this is kind of like an easy, soft place that people can start if anybody listening is feeling the way that I am feeling, which is like, okay, we had the fun summer, the fun year. It's been kind of crazy. I've been very lax with all of my routines and I feel okay, you know, mentally, physically, all of that. But going into fall, going into winter, I want to just like enhance my life a little bit with some of these practices. So I remember when Brandon Epstein, the mental performance coach, came on my show, I had kind of a profound revelation in that episode because I was talking about how I feel really good, really excited about everything that's happening, but I also feel overwhelmed, like there aren't enough hours in the day. And I remember him saying, if that's the story that you tell yourself, that's going to be your reality. You know, we have confirmation bias. So whatever story we're telling ourselves, whatever we believe to be true, we're going to seek out things that will confirm that to be true. So I say, I'm so overwhelmed. Things are so crazy. That's like what I always say. Everyone's like, how are you? I'm like, good. Everything's so crazy. It's like, yep. That's going to be my experience. And when I say like, there's not enough hours in the day, I say that to my boyfriend all the time. And he's so busy too. If that's like my narrative, that's going to be my experience. So when he and I were talking about that, I was like, I wonder if I implemented a few small changes and I tell myself a different story, I wonder what would happen. And I remember the next day. So prior to this, I've been waking up at, 6:30. I get on my phone. I see what emails I absolutely have to respond to that are urgent from the day before or whatever. I check in with Chelsea, who's like my brand manager, who just runs everything, see whatever she needs me to do. We have like a check-in call, check in with whoever else is on my team who either has deliverables or whatever. I do a lot of work. And then I kind of just like roll into my day, and more often than not, I feel a little bit all over the place and overextended and pulled in a lot of different directions throughout the day. So after that episode, I was like, I'm going to try something different. Now, this is nothing groundbreaking, and you don't have to do it exactly how I did it, but the difference in how I felt, I was a completely different person. So I woke up, instead of jumping on my phone, say I woke up at like 6 or 6:30. I stayed off my phone. I went outside. I know not everybody can do this, but you could like sit by a window and you can do whatever version of this you want. But I did my 10-minute Wim Hof breath work. So something about that, I don't know the science behind it. I should probably get him on. Ashley, let's make a note.
Let's go. Note it.
Something about getting all of that oxygen in your body really, really like energizes me and balances me, and it like resets my nervous system. And I did it outside because I wanted to get the sunlight in my eyes first thing. You could do any version of that you want. But the point is like staying off the phone and doing something for kind of my mind and my body. And then I did my 20-minute TM. And so that's 30 minutes in the morning. And I know that not everybody has that, but I was still off my phone. So then it's like 7 a.m. and I had made a pact with myself to not get on my phone until 9 in the morning. I'm like, I'm going to be like a normal person, like a 9 to 5, and set some boundaries because I am feeling so overwhelmed, and I'm contributing to that overwhelm with the way that I'm living my life and not having any boundaries with anything, especially work. And so it's like, 7 o'clock, and I look at my watch and I'm like, I still have 2 hours. I don't know what to do with myself for 2 hours. I did gua sha. I know that not everyone has this time. I don't have kids. We know. But everybody can work some version of this into their lives. I did some gua sha, did my skincare routine. Then it's still like 7:45. So then I go for a walk. I mean, by the time it was 9 in the morning, I felt so balanced and so energized and so clear and so ready for the day. And nobody needs an email response at 6 in the morning. And I mean, Ashley, you don't respond till 9 in the morning.
I sure don't. I'm glad you noticed that. Between 9 and 6.
I've been doing this.
Boundaries.
Yeah. I mean, and I noticed that with a lot more people, though. I do notice that more and more, I'm not getting responses.
I kind of feel called out, though.
What? Why? That's so good. That's like what it's we good. All aspire to.
Yes. And my phone is on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah. You take it to the next level.
Even if I look at my phone, I'm not being disturbed by anyone else until I'm okay with it. So between 9 and 6 for
amazing,
work.
Though. I love that for you. And that is what I aspire But I am noticing it more and more. And I'll see even like if I send an email at 6:30 in the morning, I get a response that's like, my hours are 9 to 5. And I'm like, wow, what is that like? I need to start doing that. So what is the moral of the story? I only did that once. I think that was before I went away. But now I have that reference point of like, oh yeah, I think we hear all of these wellness things and it's like, yeah, we know, like don't get on the phone first thing, like have boundaries, but it really does work. And it would work even had I stayed off my phone for 20 minutes and just went outside, got a little sunlight, sat there for 5 minutes, went around the block, on a walk or something. Like there's so many versions that you can do. You can journal, like whatever it is. And I know, again, I'm not saying anything groundbreaking, but this is what I'm committing to for my fall reset. That's like step number 1 is having boundaries, implementing boundaries. Ashley, you're going to see me on Do Not Disturb till 9 in the morning. Okay. Or you won't because you won't even be on your phone. Like it's just not as urgent. Like I feel like we live in this urgency culture where we feel like everything has to be responded to right away. And I think there was even a study. I heard about this on Armchair Expert and I don't remember the stats or anything, but they were like, whatever percent, it was like 80 or 90% of like the emails that you urgently have to respond to get taken care of before you even respond. So like, I think, we're all living in this time where we feel like so stressed, so overwhelmed, so available to everyone all the time. And some of that is self-imposed because like of the way that we are living our lives. So no more.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
23.
Oh. Okay. And just to round that out, so the other things that I'm doing in my kind of like loose, light, soft fall reset are I'm cooking more because I've just been eating out nonstop, traveling nonstop. I have been filming recipes for you guys, so I have a lot of ideas for you when it comes to that. And I'm going to start moving my body a little more, just like even if it's walking. People asked if I'm still aiming for 10,000 steps, what my diet and workout is. I talked about this in my last solo. I said it's non-existent. I definitely am not aiming for a certain amount of steps, but definitely doing something to move the body without being so excessive that then I like fall back into being symptomatic. But I think that for fall reset, like I've seen so many videos online and again, very regimented. But I think back to this concept of doing something for the mind, doing something for the body, doing something for like spirituality. And I always lose people on that last part. But I do think that those 3 things like make this even triangle. Like I know for me, I have to be balanced in all of those areas. So like the spirituality would be the meditation. You could do walking meditation, anything. There's so many apps for that. Even like journaling. I mean, whatever you want to do for the mind and then for the body. And the body stuff is like the movement, the home cooking, things like that. And just trying to keep those balanced and definitely the boundaries for the mind. So moving on. People asked, how is my relationship with Chuck? So I told him after he asked me nicely that I would not be really sharing about him on the podcast. But I will say our relationship is good. It's been difficult at times. Here I am talking about him. Sorry. It's hard to navigate a friendship with an ex. It seems like a very easy, great ideal. When you're about to go through it. And then in reality, it's difficult, especially when like there's dating and, it brings up feelings and emotions and it's a little bit turbulent, but we're in a good place now. I've seen him a few times the last few days and we're good.
Okay.
So if you're listening, love ya. Okay. But I got a bunch of questions. How is it now being out of Hollywood? And are there any stories that I can tell from my time that I was married to somebody in Hollywood? And, there was really nothing. I think people are insinuating, like, they want nefarious stories. Everybody is very interested in, like, the dark side of Hollywood, especially now with all the Diddy stuff coming out, which I think was surprising to absolutely nobody. Maybe the severity and the degree to which, he was the way that he was allegedly is shocking, things that are coming out. But, stories had been going around for years about him. But like when I was married to Chuck, I mean, I don't know if it's an age thing. It's also like a him thing. And I just wasn't around any of that. I didn't ever see any darkness at all, and I would go to award shows and parties and premieres, and I had a lot of like the inside scoop, I think, just from me being on the periphery, being married to somebody who was in that world for so long, but nothing dark. But I did share about this on Patreon. I do have stories from before I got sober.
Okay.
I did go to a Diddy party.
Okay.
So I was maybe like 20, 21, pretty young. I was living in Florida at the time, deep into my addiction. But at the time, it was still kind of that fun with problems. So in recovery, we say it's fun, then it's fun with problems, then it's just problems. Mine was fun with problems from the get-go. And when I was living in Florida, I moved there initially because I went to treatment there because I got a DUI. And then I was like, well, this is great. I'm staying. And it was Winter Music Conference, which was when they had like all of these famous DJs. And it was just like a party. Miami's always a party. But in that time, early 2000s, Miami, pre-social media, pre-smartphones. I mean, I think maybe we had like the first iteration iPhone, but like not what it is now. There was like a freedom at that time for sure.
Yep.
And so it was Winter Music Conference, and I was just raging, put it that way. And I was with a friend of mine, and I don't remember like the exact circumstances, but we went to some party till like 3, 4 in the morning. And then we ended up at some hotel. We had a room by ourselves. I don't know how or why we were at this hotel and why we got this room, but we were like passing out in our clothes from the club, and we get a knock on the door, and it's like 4 in the morning. And we open the door, and there's this huge guy, and he's like, hey, do you guys want to come to a party? And we were like, yeah. I can only imagine what we looked like at that time, by the way, because it was like all day drinking and partying, and then to the club, and all day and night, like, and for days. I mean, probably the most ratchet that you could ever imagine, wearing like an Ed Hardy dress or something. It was like back in those days.
My God.
So anyway, we're like, yes, we're going to this party. We're going with you. We know nothing about who this person is, where we're going. We get ready really quick, and we go down, and there's a Rolls Royce waiting outside of the hotel. We're like, great. And we go to this party on Star Island, and it was Diddy's house, and it was huge, and it's probably kind of like the tail end of the party by the time we got there. I do remember like the sun coming up at some point. I didn't see anything nefarious happening. I know that people have talked about like there's the inside party, or there's the outside party and the inside party. And the inside party is like where a lot of this stuff was happening. But I was inside. I think I told you. I was inside, but I was in the kitchen because I was hungry.
Getting protein.
Yeah, because I probably hadn't eaten for like 2 days, if you catch my drift. And I remember being in the kitchen, and I remember like definitely the ratio of like older guys to younger girls was quite large, as to be expected. I mean, there was just nothing that was like surprising or shocking. But, we were also probably kind of a hot mess, and maybe we weren't invited to the the party that we're all hearing about
right
now. But it's just like these situations that I used to get myself in were so crazy. I look back and I'm like, how am I still alive? And there's so many of those. And I did also share on Patreon that he had a collaborator who was a DJ, like a famous DJ. And I was at this school that I was going to downtown Miami, and it's right next to the Passport place. And this is back when I had a Sidekick and Facebook. That's all we had. And I see this DJ, because I was a little bit of like a DJ groupie, we'll put it that way. I think I used a different word in Patreon. DJ groupie. I see this DJ, Eric Murillo, I'll name him, at the Passport. Why are you laughing?
Go ahead. You dropping names. I love it.
Yeah, dropping names. Well, he's passed away.
Okay,
R.I.P.
I know. I'm sorry.
So
Go
yeah.
ahead. Go with the story.
Anyway, I see him in line. So I like get on my Sidekick and I'm like, and I get on Facebook and I send him a Facebook message and I'm like, hey, did I just see you in the Passport line? And he wrote me right back and said yes. And like, I don't know what my intention was. Like, I was not trying to hook up with this guy. I think I just wanted to like have that connection because I was like such a party girl, you know? And I wanted to like get in the VIP at Space or something. Like that was probably my goal. I don't think he interpreted it that way. So anyway, we were like messaging a little bit on Facebook and he invited me over one night. And again, I'm so naive. I'm so young and dumb. And I was like, sure. Like, what could go wrong? What could this guy be thinking?
Right.
And I drank a Four Loko, as one does when they're a young alcoholic. And I got in my car to go to his house. And this is like pre Waze, Google Maps, whatever. I don't remember. I think maybe he just like sent me directions. And I think he lived on Star Island too in Miami. And I blacked out on the Four Loko and I was driving. Thank God I didn't hurt anybody. And I couldn't find the house. And somehow I like didn't go. I got all the way down there, but I didn't go because I got so like frustrated and discombobulated, I think. And I just drove back. I was staying in Boca at that time, which was like an hour away. So it never happened and he was kind of pissed, but that was it. And then it came out just a few years ago, I think, that he was accused of raping like hundreds of women.
Oh my God.
And I think about that time, and there's so many times in my addiction, my alcoholism, where we have this phrase, seconds and inches. You know, you're seconds and inches away from something happening. Seconds and inches away from death, you know, so many times. Seconds and inches away from that. And it's just crazy to look back on, you know, and there were other times that like I did not get away, where I did end up at the sketchy guy's house or whatever. And those are like, unfortunately, the consequences of my drinking and my drug use. And I just think of these crazy things that I did. So here's another one. This will be a blind item. So when I was living in Florida, I had this friend, we'll call him, and he was connected to a lot of like wealthy people. And he had this friend, we'll call her T, called me one day and he's like, hey, T is going to Puerto Rico. Do you want to go with her? Sure.
Let's go.
No questions asked. Not why are we going to Puerto Rico?
Right.
Well, who's there? What are we? No. Sure. Like, I'm ready. I'm down. He took me to the airport. I fly to San Juan with T, who I maybe had spent like 5 minutes with prior to that. And we get to Puerto Rico and still no questions asked. No, like, what are we doing? Where are we going? And I'm trying to remember where we were staying. El San Juan, maybe. And we get there. She's like, get ready. We're going out. We got some illicit drugs from the valet, I think, at that hotel, and did some of those drugs. And we go to this club to meet the people that we were there to spend this weekend with. And it was a famous football player, still famous and relevant. I mean, this was probably, let's see, I was maybe like 20, 21, 22. So like, say conservatively 15 years ago. So he doesn't play anymore, but he's still relevant now. And I was like, oh, huh. But I don't even know if I should say this, but they were preoccupied with very young girls, very young Puerto Rican girls. And so I don't know really why we were there. She had friends who were friends with these football players. So we kind of hung out with the friends the whole weekend and just like partied, and we just got like very fucked up, to be totally honest. But that was one instance where I was like, whoa. And I think he's married. He was definitely married at the time.
Right.
And
That's
and
horrible.
I'm sure that happens so often. So often, you know, like if I just saw it like this random time and I wasn't even like in that world or anything,
Yeah.
I'm sure nobody listening is surprised. And I'm sure that like it's not just this one person, it's
Right.
so many of them. But those were the situations that I found myself in prior to getting sober. And I mean, one of many. There was another time when I was in Vegas, like same kind of thing. But I was participating in that, you know, like I was so deep in my addiction. I was just chasing however I could get like the drugs and the alcohol. And oftentimes that involved like these situations where older guys wanted to have younger girls around, and it was like transactional. I'm not saying I did anything with them because I did not, but like they wanted to have the girls around and they would supply the drugs and the alcohol, and like sometimes things happened, you know, and when it wasn't me, it was someone I was with, or it was like or somebody else in the group. And definitely men behaving badly.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
I don't like anything about the story, but what I like about you is that you are being accountable. So you're aware that, okay, you put yourself in these situations, and I like that it's full circle. You're showing what happened when you were in your addiction and how you've overcome, and the things that could happen to anyone who's possibly addicted to anything, right? But it's kind of like we also have these choices and the consequences that could happen from these choices. And sharing who you are now, it's a beautiful transformation just to see. But again, I just like when people are accountable for their own actions.
Thank you. Yeah, I was not an accountable person before I got sober. I felt like a victim of my own life and the circumstances of my life. And it was always everybody else's fault.
Yep.
And when I got sober, I really had to look at my part in everything. And I was like, oh, I do have a part. And like, there were things that happened to me as a result of the people that I was hanging around and the situations that I got myself into, where there were things that happened that I didn't want to happen, right? Nobody deserves that, and nobody should do that.
Of course.
And when you are hanging around the people that I was hanging around, involved in the things that I was involved in, inebriated, vulnerable, young, I did have to be accountable for that. Like nobody deserves that. And also it was a consequence of my disease, which doesn't mean that it was my fault.
Correct.
But it's a reminder to do what I have to do to not live like that anymore, because I don't want to suffer those consequences anymore. And at the time, I didn't even care.
Right.
I didn't care because consequences were not a deterrent to me. They were just kind of the side effects of me getting my medicine, which was the drugs and the alcohol. I just kind of like bulldozed right through them. And I just was like, yeah, this is just part of like the whole thing. I don't know. It's hard to kind of articulate exactly how it was at the time, but I literally didn't care. And it wasn't until I got sober that I was like, wow, like that was not right. But the good news is, anyone listening who's finding themselves in similar situations, we don't have to live like that anymore. And I do have a little bit of a sense of humor about it now that I'm so far removed from it. Not a sense of humor about like some of the more serious stuff, but like I can look back on these stories and like the Puerto Rico thing, and I'm like, God, that was crazy. And I'm like, God, I never have to like go back there again. Like I just have no interest, you know? So on that note, I think we are done for the day, done for this episode. Let me know if you guys want to hear more solo episodes, what you want to hear about, if you like more of just kind of the life stuff, not as much of the wellness stuff on solo episodes, or if you like a mix of it, if you want to hear these old stories, whatever you want to hear, let us know. And thank you for listening as always. Love ya.